God bless you and welcome. I'm trying to grasp how to best explain things when you deal with biblical research or you're dealing with archaeology. There's a lot that has happened, and things have changed. So I'm going to give you a little account of my life, starting about when I was 12. I think that would really help understand the scope of this. So I'm going to take you back in time to when I was 11 and 12, and maybe this will help understand what I'm trying to convey, because I personally experienced it. So let's go back to where, after my sister died, we went down, my mother took the whole clan, the whole tribe, down to Mexico. And I lived in Ciudad Mexico, which is Distrito Rosa, which is a place in Mexico City. My stepfather was not that great, but nonetheless, it was interesting. But one of the things that really was cool was there was a library nearby, and this library was so magnificent, and it had so many books, and I just spent all my time I could over there. I saw people that were like me, like light skin, blue eyes, Mexican. I was like, wow. And I got to meet them, and they were they're archaeologists. And there was a school there on archaeology. So I wandered over there and started talking to them. And of course, I'm this little kid, what do I know? But I loved archaeology. I loved, dealing with, in fact, paleontology when I was a younger kid, and archaeology as I got older. So I was really enthused and say, okay. And they were planning a excavation. They were going to go on an excavation. I'm like, what do I got? How do I join? And he's like, you cannot join. I said, well, somebody has to be the gopher. Someone, can clean up or whatever. I just wanted to be a part of it. And they all thought it was funny. But I met the head. He was a German, I believe. Anyway, so I met the head of the excavation. And he told me he couldn't hire me, but if I wanted to volunteer, as long as it was okay with my parents, it was like not a problem. They would much rather me not be there anyway. So I got the permission and I joined, and it was so extraordinary. Now, when you go on a dig, you're a volunteer, and I was like, in fact, they even got a nickname. I was called Wedo. Sometimes I was called Ben, but but what it boils down to, I just basically grabbed the truck's buckets and moved one dirt from here over to there so they could screen it and put it through the sieves. That's all I did. Pick it up, and someone called, "Hey, Widow," and they call me over and they give me some water, and I get water, I get whatever they needed, and they actually I would carry the trudge buckets with the strap over my hand, and I would have the buckets, and I would be carrying the dirt over there. And you figure, wow, this is so exciting. And there would be someone call for a discovery, and I go rushing over there to see it. And of course, there was nothing really exciting. It was just a small Mayan village. It wasn't like anything big. I remember the office was an old warehouse, and there had one cord came down, and it had a light bulb in it, and then it had this place we plugged everything else into it. And one went into a fan, and the other one went into a radio. And that's about it. And then we had a big red container for Coke, and there was an ice box where you put a big block of ice on the top, and it kept everything cool. It was really, really like living, back in time. And I remember all the work we used to do and all the stuff I did. It was exciting. But they finally got a find. After, you have to sleep sometimes, so people would go to sleep, and then people would come in, and sometimes they would rob the site. And we went out there, and someone had already dug ahead of us, which is kind of stupid because you need to plan out entrances. It's not just the item, you've got to learn how it's put together, where it was. And they would come in there, and we come in there, and sure enough, there was these small, votive statues. I really don't know. I don't remember all the details of it, but there's small votive statues, and there was one missing. Someone had taken it, and we were like, oh. So what we did is we mapped out everything, the depth, how far it was, where everything was at, locations, so that we had an idea of what was this place, what was the item, and we knew that there had to be one that would match the other three. So we all got together and we all planned this out, and they mapped it out. The artists were out there doing it. They were taking photographs. And it was really exciting for me. I just really loved it. And I would make tips. You know, people would give me tips, and I started accumulating. So the whole time I was out there, I think I made a whopping $9, something like that, $8 in tips. And then I was out in the market, and someone walked up to me and says, "You're with the, you're working with the dig, right?" And you know, and I said, "Why do you ask?" He says, "I have something for you." And he opened up this sheet, and in it was that missing statue. And I went, oh my God, that's it. That's the missing statue. So I said, thank you. He goes, no, he wanted some money for it. Well, I had like $8 maybe in tips and a whole bunch of Mexican coins. But I had a wristwatch. And you know, when you're a kid, you think like, I found the missing piece. I found the missing statue. Do you know how famous I could be? I would get my name in history. And your imagination just goes on, you know, and on. Like, wow. All it will cost me is my wristwatch. So I said, okay, I'll give you my wristwatch too. And he thought about it because that's all you got. And I'm like, that's all I got. He goes, well, I'm not going to do it. I said, okay. I said, I haven't got anything else to offer you. So he accepted all my money, my wristwatch, and I got the little statue. The feeling of being at the doorway of infamy, you know, of being famous, not infamy. That's the bad part. I'm going to be part of history. My name will be in the history books and all that crap. So I'm so proud and I'm so excited. I'm looking for the head of the dig, the guy, and he was always separate from everybody else. And I kept asking, where is he? Where is he? And I got it all wrapped up in the rag. And he's over in the office, so I had to they had this little bicycle for me, which is really funny. Both tires were flat. But I'd jump on whenever they wanted me to do things really quick, I'd just grab on this bicycle and I would pedal like crazy and go everywhere. So I jumped on the bicycle and I got as fast as I could. I mean, you can't go very far on flat tires. But anyway, I get there, and he's there, it's working, it's after night, bugs are everywhere, and the light is in the office, and he's in there working. And I walk up there and I say, I got something for you. And he has his glasses here, and he just looks over the glasses. He says, what do you have? He's got a German accent. He says, what do you have? I said, I was so proud. I was like, I'm the hero for today. And I walk over there and I unwrap it for him and I show it to him. The missing statue. He went, He goes, put it over there. I go, aren't you going to look at it? He goes, put it over there. And I looked, and there were 3 others exactly like it. And I said, what? I was like, oh my gosh. He goes, son, come here. And he says, you got to learn something about our field. People will take and they will make a copy of it. And they will sell the copies to people who don't know. So who had also done this? The foreman had done it. The laborers had done it. People had bought that thinking it was the missing piece. I felt so bad. My chance of being famous went right down the drain. So yeah, I've got this stupid little statue. It's hand carved. And I've got it, still got it hidden somewhere. I don't know where it's at, but it's not exactly one of the things I like to show people. Here is a award for my stupidity. It cost me all the money I had in my wristwatch. Gullible, you know. But one of the things that's interesting is the fact to understand what's going on. Grave robbers or treasure seekers, they don't take the whole thing. They take that which is just part. If they'd taken the whole thing, no one would have been interested. But the demand was there. And this becomes extremely important when you deal with archaeology. In 1912, a man by the name of Dawson, Charles Dawson, the most scrupulous man you could ever imagine. What he did is he took an orangutan's jaw and a small skull from a small male or human, and he damaged them so they looked like they would fit. And he found it in Piltdown gravel pits. And he put it there, and people found it. And he orchestrated the greatest fraud in the history of archaeology. Everybody's ashamed of this. And this is why the situation comes up. It's because when you do this, when you make people believe something that's not true, and then it's found out, it doesn't just discount the situation. Everything follows. So normally, before 1953, they would have bought every single copy and taken it to the museum. Now, because we weren't producing anything except the small votives and a few other things and a whole bunch of copies, which are called undocumented, they're just there. They're not considered of value at all. So when the financier came down, which was the person financing the whole thing, he saw that nothing of any value was found. So they terminated the dig. Archaeology can't survive without financiers. So my second and last archaeological dig was burying everything. We just put all the dirt back. There was still much more. You just bury it. And we documented everything up to that point, measured everything we knew. We could put everything back where it was. That's how accurate it was. Except for the missing statue. We allocated where it was missing. But the copies are of no value. Well, one of them could be the original. What would it take? You could take any one of those and put them through $10,000 of testing because they're rock. We know the rock is old. And the carving, what about the carving? Did they use stone tools to carve it? Did they use anything else to carve it? How are you going to prove it? You'd have to use microscopic examination. You'd have to use chemical testing on it. The whole thing, the idea of the growth of patnus over the rock, it'd be too expensive. To give an example, there are two archaeological pieces that were from the pre-destruction of Jerusalem in 79 AD. One of them is called the Jehoash tablet or inscription. You can look it up, Jehoash Inscription, and which is no doubt that is ancient, that it was a relic, the Israel relic from the time of Joash, and brought forward to the temple in Jerusalem in 79 AD when it was burned. There were pieces of gold in it. The thing was just absolutely no doubt. But there's a problem. You see, in archaeology, you got to have all five. You got to know who, what, when, where, and why. Those 5 components are crucial. And I'm going to explain why in a second here. Because when you know what it is you're looking at, but where did they get it? How was it appropriated? When was it appropriated? What was it? So the only one of those little votive statues that counted were the ones that were still there. We can document it. We know where it came from, how it got there, when it was there. We know every piece. So every piece of those little votive statues, the little statues, there's a whole paper with pictures and images of where it came from. But as for those copies, can't. All right? How about the Jehoash inscription? It goes all the way back to the previous temple, the first temple. So what are you going to do? Well, it's real. Really? Who found it? When did they find it? How was it found? There's no proof. Yet you can examine it, and they've spent over $20,000 examining it, putting it through the labs. Guaranteed. They know exactly that it goes back to 800 BC, and that it was the actual patina over it was in 79 AD at the burning of the temple. No doubt. But we don't know anything else. So we have a problem. How was it found? Where was it found? Who found it? What was the environment in which it was? The subject matter, when you find it in situ. If it ain't in situ, it ain't true. I don't care how much facts it is. If it ain't in situ, it's not true. Is that making sense? All right, now let's go to the next section. All right, there's what is called the ossuary of James. All right, when did it come? Well, 200 BC, all up to 79 AD, that the Israelis would bury their people in the crypts. They would lay them out in these stone beds, right? They would just carve it out of the rock, and they would put the body there on this platform. And then over time, because you're talking about extreme heat of the desert, and then the flesh would rot, and all there'd be left were bones. Then you gather the bones and you put them into a limestone box. And you mark on the outside who it is that's in there. And so they would mark it as to who it was, whose bones are in there. And then they would have planks for lay another body down. But that's how the Jews did it. And there's crypts for whole families. And then at the bones, then you would put it in the box. So the problem is they found an ossuary that says James, the son of Joseph, the brother of Jesus. No doubt that is the box of James that is written, the one who wrote First James, or rather James, the brother of Jesus. There's no doubt. But the problem is, where was it found? Who found it? Where was it found? There's no supporting evidence. I mean, you and I know we're real. All right, last time I checked, I looked in the mirror and, oh, okay, I know that guy. All right, well, I know who I am. I know where I came from. I know how I got to be. You can ask, if you want more details, you can ask mom and dad. So it's who, what, when, where. Now the where part, I know where I was born. I was born in Van Nuys, California, in a hospital, which is now a parking lot. But anyway. But the key is, what's my purpose? I know the why. Why am I here? I have a purpose. And that purpose is concerning the Word of God, because people do not know it. So now we have James, the brother of John, the brother of Jesus. James, son of Joseph, brother of Jesus. Bottom line, that's James. But, whoa, we're missing a lot of components here, aren't we? We have the artifact. What's wrong? Well, if we had the bones, they emptied them out. When someone who's not an archaeologist takes something, he destroys its value. If it's not in situ, it's not true. Bottom line. Why? Because you don't know if it's a copy. Well, could someone copy that? No. It's too advanced to be We have no technology to even duplicate that. But nonetheless, we don't know who did it. We don't know where it was, when it was. It's just a box. It was found in antiquities. Someone had robbed it, found it, whatever, and gave it and sold it. So we have the Jehoash inscription, not valuable. We have cannot be accepted. Why? Because people can make copy. You can't. Of those 4 that we found that he had, besides the one I added to it, which one was real? It would take $10,000 to figure it out. Have they done that for the Jehoash inscription? Yes. The Jewish people all pitched in and paid for all that work. So there's no doubt it's from the early temple period and was destroyed in 79 AD at the temple. Was this a problem? Yes, because there was a lot of teachings that there was no, the Bible wasn't true, and this proves it. Not only is it from the early temple period, but it's also part of the destruction of Jerusalem. Well, how about, why don't we do the same thing for the inscription, the ossuary of James? We got real problems here. People don't want to know the truth. They were going to, well, is it proven? Yeah, they spent a lot of money on chemical analysis to actually examine it at the highest detail, molecularly. It went through tens of thousands of dollars of research. Why won't it be accepted? Because we're bucking against the modern church that says that Jesus cannot have a brother. So the churches are against it. So it's not, and the Jews could care less. So who's going to help support this research? Nobody. Is it true? Yes. It's an ossuary. Yes. Is it from James? The person had James. His father was Joseph. His brother was Jesus. That's who it is. Where's the bones? They're gone. When was it found? No one knows. Who found it? We don't know. All right, so it has no what? If it's not in situ, it's not true. If it's not in situ, it has no value. Not in situ, no value. Bottom line. All right? So people pull scriptures out of the Bible. Now, understand, there's a problem. I am a primitive Christian. No, that's not what it's talking about. It's talking about the first century church. Not the modern church. The modern church came out in 325 AD. That came from the Nicene thing. That was strictly European. Had nothing to do with the Eastern culture. No one even was invited from the Aramaic side. So it didn't make any difference. So the pre-Nicene, that's where I'm apart. And this is the word. So what does it say? Did Jesus have a brother? Well, let's find out. So if you grab your Bible, if you happen to have a Bible, it would be good to have it. And you go into Mark, we have some interesting statements here. So in Mark, chapter 6, it says, when Jesus is teaching, the people hearing him teaching say, and this is verse 3, is not this the carpenter, the son of Mary, the brother of James and Joseph? All right, so now you count it. No. Mary was immaculate. Immaculate what? She conceived immaculately. What are you talking about? The Mary you're talking about is like Diana of Ephesians, as far as I'm concerned. Has nothing to do with the Bible. Well, Diana of Ephesians was conceived immaculately. Yeah. She had perfect birth, right? So did all the other Greek and Roman gods. But that has nothing to do with the Bible. All right, so let's examine this, okay? All right. Is not this the carpenter, the son? Now you count how many brothers he's got. Is not this the carpenter, the son of Mary, the brother of James? Aha. All right. And Joseph. And of what? Judah. And who? Simon. All right. So Jesus had 4 brothers. Mary had 5 sons, counting Jesus. and are not his sisters? Here, all right, so now we got a problem. Not only is Mary had 5 boys, she also had at least 2, right? Sisters requires plural. So 2 daughters. You can't say sisters unless there's more than 1. So we have 5 boys, 2 girls. Or more. Isn't that intense? Now that is not going to be acceptable by the current religion. Why? Because they will not accept that Jesus is or had brothers and sisters. Impossible. Can't happen. But what does the word say? Well, we don't go by that. It's a relic from the primitive church. We have something far better now. And they've made new Bibles. I mean, they've got some where they just totally rewrote the whole thing. Either it's the same God from Genesis to Revelations, is it began as a sect of the Hebrew faith, Hebrew religion, and it was part of the Hebrew religion and for 79 years until it became independent. Look, the Bible is the standard, not what we do to it. You don't add to the scriptures. You don't modify anything. You don't, what do they call those? You ever go to a buffet? Well, I'd like to add this to the Bible and this to the Bible. We're going to take that out. What is that? This is not designer Bible here. We don't make a designer God. There's only one God. What? Yeah, and Jesus is God. No. Jesus prayed to God, but Jesus is not God. Oh, Frank, you got to be kidding. Look, if a man lives by every word of God, is there a problem? Yes, because the Bible is a relic. You need to go to the greater understanding of the ex cathedra that is spoken by the Pope. I could care less about Mr. Poop. Look, what does the word say? I'm sorry, Pope. He's a Pope, right? The vicar. The replacement of God on earth for a man. When he speaks ex cathedra, it's wow. Look, what does the word say? Don't pull any verses out. Don't put any verses in. Don't mix it with philosophy. Don't add it with all kinds of Greek and Roman religion. What does it say? Don't try and force it into the Greek and Roman religion like Erroneous did, St. Jerome. Don't play those games. Keep it in situ. If it's not in situ, it's not true. What does it say? Did Mary have 5 boys? Yes. They came from her womb. Well, Jesus just came out. No, he did not just bounce out of her stomach and start teaching. This crap. Look, this is the book. Jesus didn't speak English. He spoke Aramaic. You have to learn a little bit about the culture, customs. It's not difficult. Remember I told you, when you want to research, okay, so you got all these copies. Which one's the original? Well, back when they first did this, they were always taken by all the copies. And this became a problem because in 1902, because of all the excitement by Darwin, the Descent of Man, that came out in 1873, I think it is. The Descent of Man. When he did that, everybody was so excited, and for the next 20 years, everybody's like, oh my God, evolution, the Bible's obsolete. No, that he came out with this guy by the name of, what was his name? Charles Dawson. He came out there and propounded the Piltdown Man from Piltdown gravel pit. And he proposed it. Well, guess what? From the 20s to the 30s, to the 40s, to the 50s, it became the standard of scientific journalism. Every single book came out about how man was linked to the monkey, and they have the proof and the evidence. Well, guess what? In 1953, they found out it was bullshit. I'm trying to be polite here. BS. He had fabricated it. It was an orangutan jaw, human head. I've already covered that. But what is damaging is that they decided to check other archaeological finds in the museum. How many of those are fake? How many of those aren't real? And you'll find out that they take a lot of those and they took them off of the museum floor and hid them down in the basement. Why? Because they're not real. They're not true. They're fake. They're fake. Everything they've been teaching you, everything they've been giving you is like, oh no. Yep, sorry. It's not true. It's a counterfeit. It's fake. That's why they won't let any more investigations on any of the museum finds. Won't do it. Because what they're propounding and what is truth don't line up. So Piltdown Man, there was 40 years in every single book that every kid learned in school was a lie. It's the greatest fraud in history. But once people have it in their minds, they can't get it out. Well, we'll find another one. No, they can't. Man did not come from that type of ancestry. But anyway, so did Mary have sons? Yes. Does that go against modern church? Yes. But wasn't Jesus God? Oh, well, that's a good question. Let's go in situ to the manuscript itself. Let's go into the King James. Now, if you want to go into the Stephen's text, which came from Byzantium, which is known as the Ephesus text in Aramaic and Greek, but nonetheless, let's go into Matthew. And in Matthew, we have this absolutely fascinating phrase. Here we go. In Matthew, listen carefully, chapter 19, verse 16. And behold, one came and said to him, Good master, what good things shall I do that I may have eternal life? And he said to them, Why callest thou me good? There is none good but one, that is God. So you can't call Jesus God when he denies that he is anything even related to God. Watch, look, but Frank, that's a relic. It's the truth. You modify the scriptures, you have to, well, there really isn't a God anyway. Okay, fine, do whatever the hell you want. But when you're talking about the scriptures, stay in situ. You don't stay out, you go outside of it, you talk about philosophy, you talk about scientific evidence, whatever, stay in situ. When you're talking about something, stay there and make sure you're accurate exactly what it says. Go to the Aramaic, go to the Greek, verify it. Don't pull a manuscript out of frickin' Germany or a manuscript out of Italy or a manuscript don't pull it out of there. Leave it as it is. I know that the the Westcott North, the Sinai Receptacus, bravo. But this is dealing with the accuracy of the first century church. Yes, we're talking about a relic of something that is no longer. Well, as long as I'm alive, it's real. As long as I'm alive and I'm doing my best to live by it, it's real. The church is not dead. Why callest thou me good? There's none good but what? One, God. And my Lord does not lie. If it's in situ, it's true. If it's not in situ, you cannot accept it. I don't care how good it is. I don't live by the ossuary. I don't need the ossuary of James to know this is true. I don't need the inscription of Jehoash to know this is true. You find out it's true by working it. Like anything else. How do you know if it's real? You spend the time. You spend the money. Is it worth it? If it's truth, is it worth it? You cannot accept what anyone says. You have to work it. You have to test it. If it's not falsifiable, how will you know? You've got to put it to the test. You take the word, you put it in you. Keep it in situ here and keep it in situ here. Keep it in you. You prove the word like I have. This is truth. Anything that's not in situ is not true. Keep the word of God in you. God bless you.